أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We send salutations and praises upon the selected one, the mercy of humanity, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And we send salutations and beseech Allah Jalla Jalaluhu's mercy for all of those who aided and allied and assisted with the mercy of humanity while he was walking the face of the earth until the end of time. This is your humble and respectable orator, Muhammad Israel, and I will be picking up on the legendary military ideology of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salawatullahi alayhi. And we have reached in the volume 2, quick disclosure, instead of volume 1, on page number 254 in the second paragraph. Among those who suggested that Dhul Khuwaisira was the first of the Kharijites were Abu Muhammad ibn Hazm and Ash-Shahrastani in his book Al-Milad wa Nihal. Some scholars think that the Kharijites originated at the time of the rebellion against Uthman radiyallahu anhu, may Allah Jalla Jalaluhu be pleased with him, when they stirred up the fitna that led to his being wrongfully slain and unlawfully. The unrest that they stirred up was called the first fitna. The commentator on At-Tahawiyya said the Kharijites and the Shia emerged during the first fitna. Ibn Kathir labeled as Kharijites the thugs who rebelled against and enslaved Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, and he said when discussing them after their slaying of Uthman, the Kharijites came and seized the wealth of the public treasury, in which there was a great deal of wealth. Moving along now to the next paragraph, the most correct opinion about the origins of the Kharijites, despite the strong connections between Dhul Khuwaisira and the thugs who rebelled against Uthman on the one hand, and the Kharijites who rebelled against Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu because of the arbitration on the other hand, is that this terminology, in the most accurate sense of the word, can only be applied to those who rebelled because of the arbitration. They were an organized group who formed a sect with its own political inclinations and views, and the group had a clear ideological and intellectual impact, which was not the case in the previous incidents. Very important that we make the distinction between the two. 1.2 hadith which criticize the Kharijites. There are many hadith from the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salawatullahi ta'ala alayhi which criticize the renegade Kharijites. They are described in these hadith as having the most reprehensible characteristics, which make them the worst of people. Among the hadith in which they are criticized is that which was narrated by the two Sheikh Bukhari and Muslim in the Sahih from Abu Sa'id al-Qudri, open quote, radiallahu anhu, while we were with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was sharing out some wealth of Dhul Khuwaisira. A man from Banu Tamim came and said, O Messenger of Allah, be fair. The Messenger of Allah salawatullahi alayhi said, woe to you, who will be fair if I am not? I will be doomed and lost if I am not fair. Umar ibn al-Khattab said, O Messenger of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, give me permission to strike his neck. The Messenger of Allah salawatullahi alayhi said, let him be, for he has companions in comparison to whose prayers one of you would regard his prayer as insignificant, and he would regard his fasting as insignificant in comparison to their fasting. They recite the Quran, but it does not go any further than their collarbones. They will pass out of al-Islam as an arrow passes out of the prey. When he looks at the tip of it, there is nothing on it. Then he looks at the sinews which tie the arrowhead to the shaft. That's what the sinews are. And there is nothing on them. Then he looks at its base, and there is nothing on it. Then he looks at its feathers, and there is nothing on them, because it has gone too fast to be smeared with excrement or blood. Their sign will be a black man, one of whose upper arms will be like a woman's breast or like a piece of quivering flesh. They will emerge when there is division among the people. End quote. Abu Sa'id said, open quote, I bear witness that I heard this from the Messenger of Allah, Jalla Jalaluhu, and I bear witness that Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu fought them when I was with him. He ordered that man be sought, and he was found and brought. I looked at him and saw that he was just as the Messenger of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu had described him. Very important hadith from Abi Sa'id al-Qudri, narrated through Bukhari and Muslim. The two Sheikh Bukhari and Muslim also narrated from Abu Salama and Ata ibn Yasar that they came to Abu Sa'id al-Qudri and asked him about Haruriyah, saying, did you hear the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mention them? He said, I do not know how Haruriyah are, but I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam say, they will emerge among this ummah. There will merge amongst this ummah, and he did not say from them people in comparison to whose prayers you will regard your prayers as insignificant. They will recite the Quran, but it will not go any further than their throats. They will pass out of al-Islam like the arrow passes out of the prey. Then the archer looks at his arrow, at its tip and its end and its notch, wondering whether there are any traces of blood on it. Bukhari narrated that Usayd ibn Amr said, I said to Sahl ibn Hunayf, did you hear the Messenger of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu saying anything about the Kharijites? He said, I heard him say, pointing towards Iraq, open quote, they will emerge from it people who recite the Quran, but it does not go any further than their collarbones. They will pass out of al-Islam as the arrow passes out of the prey, end quote. In these three hadith, there is a clear condemnation of the Kharijites. The Prophet Muhammad alayhi salawatullahi ta'ala alayhi described them as a group of renegades who will be inappropriately strict in religion. In fact, they will pass out of it, meaning that they will enter it and then leave it quickly, and no part of it will adhere to them. The first of the hadith also says that they will fight the group that is in the right, that the group that is in the right will destroy them, and that among them will be a man whose arm is like such and such. All of that happened as foretold by the Prophet Muhammad salawatullahi ta'ala alayhi. With regard to the words, it does not go any further than the collarbones. There are two interpretations. It may mean that they do not understand it with their hearts, so that they interpret it in a way that was not meant, or it may mean that their recitation will not be taken up to Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. One of their blameworthy or blameworthy characteristics for which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam criticized them is that all they have of faith is mere lip service, because their reasoning is weak and poor and their understanding is incorrect. They recite Al-Quran and think that it supports them, when in fact it's against them. Bukhari, may Allah Jalla Jalaluhu have mercy on him, narrated that Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu said, if I narrate to you a hadith from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, by Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, being dropped from heaven would be dearer to me than telling a lie about him. But if I tell you of something that is between me and you, then why is deceit? And I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam say, there will emerge some people at the end of time who are young in age, feeble-minded and foolish. They will quote from the best of words, but their faith will go no further than their throats. And they will pass out of al-Islam as the arrow passes out of the prey. In these two hadith, the Kharijites are criticized for having mere words instead of true faith. The first hadith indicates that their belief is verbal only and that they do not believe in their hearts. Just like, unfortunately, the Iblisis these days. We talked about Kharijites earlier in the prior video. Rebels, rebellious people, undermining of the faith, and just, as it's describing now. Both hadith indicate again that their faith is a matter of words only, and that it does not go any further than their throats or collarbones. This is the worst criticism, and that's exactly what we have today. How people are, unfortunately, all the way to the top, where, basically, it's a show. They're getting on TV and saying what needs to be done or criticizing. It's all lip service. All of these Muslim nations, Arab nations, everybody can just stand by and just go have meetings and talk about who's right and who's wrong, while killing is rampant and deprivations and all these other things, mass incarcerations, all these genocidal apartheid situations, while they're just at the United Nations having tea. Another of the reprehensible characteristics for which the Prophet ﷺ criticized them is that they will pass out of Islam and will never be guided to return to it. Yep, Tiyamaway Jilan Islam, this so-called mainstream people, everybody has their own religion now. So they've passed through, al-Islam in passing. That's what they've done, and never to come back to it, because they are making their own religions, ad-dallin, continuously being misguided by Allah Himself, Jalla Jalaluhu, because everybody says, hey, I have my own, these are my own beliefs, and nobody can actually tell me anything. They've always worked for me, and that's all there is to it, end of story. Not taking that to the actual message, the revelation of Allah. No, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is see which of the ayahs of the Quran are going to work for us and which are not. What works for us, we'll take it. What doesn't, then we'll leave it away. Yep. So that's basically, rebellious. That's rebelliousness is what we have today. And it was mentioned earlier that the first fitna brought these people out for the first time. And Allah Jalla Jalaluhu knows best. Very important. Getting back to it, Muslim, may Allah Jalla Jalaluhu have mercy on him, narrated from Abu Dharra that radiallahu anhu, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said after me, there will be among my ummah people who recite the Quran, but it does not go any further than their throats. They will pass out of the faith as an arrow passes out of the prey, then they will not return to it. They are the most evil of mankind and all creation, those Iblises, evil doers. He narrated from Abu Sa'id radiallahu anhu that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned some people among his ummah who will rebel as a group and whose characteristic feature was that they would have shaven heads. He said, open quote, they are the most evil of mankind, or among the most evil of mankind, and they would be killed by the group that is closer to the truth, end quote. Inshallah, we will end this one here on page number 258. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسم ربك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.